And now we move to self-driving cars. We are joined by best person to discuss it in the entire world, the car coach, Laura Fix. Laura, thank you for being with us again. It's really a pleasure to have you. Tell me this, self-driving cars, we all know that they were headed down that direction, but how the heck do they deal with conditions like ice and snow? How are they testing those things?
Well, that is a problem, and I know that manufacturers have been testing that for years. Volvo has been testing it in Sweden, and they're actually running them on the roads right now. So they're dealing with cold weather and all of the weather affects that. So it'd be snow and ice and sleet and whiteout storms that can happen. Here in the U.S., we're testing in Detroit. Ford's had a city that they actually mock up. And the big problem they're all having is when those cameras or the LiDAR or the radar get covered with weather conditions such as snow and sleet or a whiteout that happens with no notice, that's where they have a problem. And the person sitting in the driver's seat has to take over. And that's a big concern because if consumers and drivers don't practice this talent of driving, and then suddenly you have to take over, we're not going to be ready to do it at such a quick, short notice. And then if the weather's that bad, if they are autonomous, we may not even be able to get it where we need to be.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking, I mean, the only accidents I have had, little fender benders, have all been due to ice. And, you know, so heck if I'm going to take over in the middle of something where I can barely do, you know, okay just by myself. And I don't know how they would possibly deal with, you know, these driving conditions. I mean, it seems like they could figure out a solution to the visibility, you know, have a heater on the sensor, et cetera, that sort of thing. But it really seems difficult. Is this something that they're going to get around eventually, or is it something that could maybe stymie them for several years?
I think this is going to be a problem. Weather conditions are constantly changing, and you know, anytime you look outside and it's clear and it's fine, that's good. But when it starts snowing and you think, ah, it's the light snow, I'll just get to where I'm going, and we have a whiteout. We just had this problem in Buffalo, New York. There was a 75-car pileup, where an autonomous car is going to make a logic decision of, do I go here or do I go there, where we as humans make different choices. Hey, I see there's a pileup or there's a slowdown of traffic. I may have to drive on the grass and maybe even hit the Armco, you know, that railing on the side, in order to not be hit from behind by other vehicles, because when snow conditions come on with no notice, or ice or bad wind, that's the problem. These cameras, they may decide quickly, but they may not make the same decision a human has. And I think one of the big solutions to this is to keep people going through driver's ed and to educate them how to drive better, not just to pass the test. Absolutely. You know, I wonder if maybe there would be separate standards for you know, when you would be able to use the autonomous vehicles. You know, if you're in LA and it's, you know, 75 degrees and clear, that, you know, you're right, it's allowed to use it. But if you're in, like you say, Buffalo, New York in January, maybe no. Are people talking about that, or is it too early to get into the nitty-gritty of those potential regulations? Well, that's going to be some of the big factors. I know we've discussed this before. Big regulations going to be government regulations and insurance. Those are going to be two major factors. We still got hackers involved. We haven't even come up with that, where the U.S. has stopped vehicle-to-vehicle communications, and so they're not working on that. That means they can't come up with a permanent firewall that will actually protect you in a vehicle. You're basically in an amusement ride. You have no control. So if an autonomous car is hacked, it could be very dangerous. Plus, we don't know, there are some people that are a little nefarious, and they might put you know, something horrible into a car and send it on its way. So we really have to look at all the possible variables where humans are involved with computers. I think we're a ways off. I know Uber is testing in Pittsburgh, so they're going to start working with some of the winter conditions and how they are affected. But I still think these are major factors that need to be addressed, because sometimes they come up with no notice, and even though a computer gets that information from the weather and other vehicles, there's still a lot of problems that have to be situated.
Lauren, before we go, we got about a minute. I'm wondering if you have a take on the news recently. You may not have been following it, but the GM plants pulling out of South Korea. Do you think they're going to pull? They're closing one down with about 2,000 workers, but there's still 4,000 there. Do you think they're going to pull all the way out of South Korea?
Well, this is when General Motors purchased Daewoo. And they weren't doing so well. And the Korean government owns about 17% of that company that's based there in Korea. I think what they're doing is consolidating, because right now General Motors is the 4th largest car company globally. And so in order to make yourself stronger, you need to get rid of some of that excess spending, and they just weren't making the money off that old Daewoo factory. So they're consolidating some of the workers in the other 2 plants. But the fact is, they really got to think about, am I making money? It's not just, I know it's about jobs for consumers, but for the manufacturer, they have to look, if we're not making any money, we're taking a total loss, and cars aren't being sold, and there's about 520,000 vehicles being produced in Korea. They got to look at the big picture.
Yeah, bottom line is really what you do in business. Lauren Fix, the cargo coach, thank you for joining us again. We really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.